On the morning of June 23, 1990 in Bellevue, Washington, McDonald's employee was taking out the trash when he found something horrifying. So he ran inside and called 911. Police came to the scene and discovered the new body of a young woman. Though she had no visible gunshot or stab wounds, she had been posed in a strange way, as there was a large coffee cup lid covering her right eye. One foot was crossed over the other, and her hands were folded over her stomach, and they were holding a pine cone. It was clear that she had been dumped there after her death. An autopsy showed that she had been kicked so hard that her liver ruptured, in addition to severe head trauma and strangulation marks. The killer then penetrated her with an object after she died, but this was just one of a series of killings in the area by a sexual sadist who had already been breaking into people's homes. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. George Russell was born in Florida in April 1958. His parents separated when he was an infant, where his mother took him to live with her in Mercer Island, Washington, where her new husband was. The couple had a new daughter whom they doted on, while George was neglected. This early rejection led to his isolation and immersion into a life of crime. George was a local troublemaker as a teen, mostly committing thefts and burglaries. He would frequently invade homes, stealing cash, jewelry, and other items. He would even stand beside the bed of sleeping women, silently watching them. It is theorized that he got sexual pleasure from his frequent home invasions. When George was 13, he was arrested for truancy, but instead of punishment, he was allowed to work at the local police station. Now that he was familiar with police procedure, he was able to commit more crimes without being caught. He even had a police scanner and told people he worked for the police and the FBI. He was also fascinated with serial murder cases and was well informed on the Ted Bundy and Green River cases. He followed the news stories very closely and cut out the newspaper clippings as well as the photographs of the victims. He would compare them to each other and ridicule the police techniques, even telling a friend, "The only way the police will catch the killer is with trace evidence." In his 20s, George frequented the nightclubs of Bellevue, but he struggled to hold a real job. Carrying his possessions, including several porn magazines, in a duffel bag, he would always try to hook up with the women at the clubs, but he was rarely successful. But most people in the community said he was a good-looking man who had a charm about him. His extreme narcissism led to him eventually being banned from the club for impersonating a police officer, and this would expose the hidden dark side of his personality. On June 23, 1990, a McDonald's employee was taking out the trash when he found a female body by the dumpster. Upon police examination, there were no gunshot or stab wounds, but the victim was strangely posed. Her face was covered with a coffee cup lid that hid blunt force injuries to her head. Her left foot was crossed over her right ankle, and her hands lay over her stomach, clutching a pine cone. Her autopsy showed that she had been brutally choked by her necklace and beaten as she was kicked so hard that her liver ruptured against her spine. The worst aspect was that she was penetrated and sodomized with a foreign object post-mortem. The police recovered foreign pubic hairs from the body and around the scene. The woman was identified 4 days later as 27-year-old Mary Ann Polwright. She had last been seen in the early morning hours of June 23rd at a popular bar and restaurant. Her car was located in the parking lot, and her pocketbook was discovered in the restaurant's lost and found. On August 9, 1990 in Bellevue, 35-year-old Carol Mary Beath was at home with her two daughters. One of them had gotten up and noticed that somebody was searching through the rooms with a flashlight before disappearing. She walked into her mother's bedroom to find her new body with a pillow over her head. She had several bite marks on her arms and a plastic laundry bag tied over her head. Her legs were crossed as a pair of red high heels were put on her feet, and the barrel of a shotgun was inserted 5 inches into her vagina. The police discovered more foreign pubic hairs on the mattress and rug. 2 expensive rings were missing from Carol's hands. On September 3rd, another woman, later identified as 26-year-old Andrea Levine, was found dead in her bedroom. Her new body was placed under the covers with a pillow over her head. She had a vibrator shoved in her mouth and a book entitled More of the Joys of Sex found next to her head. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma from an aluminum baseball bat as her brains leaked out onto the sheets. When the covers were removed, they exposed a total of 241 post-mortem stab wounds on the victim. There were wounds on the neck, chest, breasts, abdomen, upper thighs, back, buttocks, and even the soles of her feet. A ring was missing from her finger along with every knife in the house. Now, with 3 dead women in 3 months, and with all of them being under similar circumstances, the police knew they had a serial killer on their hands. But on September 12th, they would get their big break. Bellevue resident Robin Oldenburg was packing for a trip when she heard a strange knock on her window. After she heard the noise again, she called the police. When they arrived, They found the screen on her door was missing, showing that someone was in the process of breaking in. They saw a car driving away from the scene and gave chase. Upon stopping it, they ran their plates and it came back as George Waterfield Russell, who had a warrant for impersonating a police officer, and he was arrested. The semen and sperm found on Mary's body was matched to George's blood type, and the investigation completely focused on him at this point. Police also managed to track down a witness who saw Polreich at the club the night she died. They said they also saw Russell leave with a woman, but they couldn't be sure it was her. The witness did remember Russell had come to the club that night with a friend though. The friend was soon tracked down, and he admitted Russell had asked to use his truck that night to take a girl home. The next morning when Russell returned the truck, he claimed that he had to get it cleaned because a girl vomited clam chowder in it. The friend distinctly recalled saying it smelled more like blood, as if something had been gutted in there. The truck was taken in and processed for evidence, and inside, they found traces of Polreich's blood on the seats. Investigators had also been able to track down Levine's missing ring after interviewing Russell's associate. George had given it as a gift to a woman he had asked out, claiming he bought it from a street vendor in Canada. They were able to get the ring back and identify it as Levine's, effectively tying Russell to her murder. The pubic hairs found near Carol's body were found to be George's as well. In October, he was charged with 3 murders, but he pleaded innocent to all the charges. The prosecution and defense brought experts in sexual homicide and behavioral profiling to the stand. The prosecutor succeeded in getting the controversial DNA test for the hairs, semen, and blood stains admitted as evidence. John Douglas, the famous FBI behavioral scientist, testified about finding a typical pattern in all the rapes and murders, and the close time frame of all 3 homicides pointed to one perpetrator. The testimony helped the jurors be convinced, beyond circumstantial evidence and reasonable doubt, that all 3 corpses displayed the unique signature of a single killer. George was found guilty of 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of aggravated first-degree murder on November 1991. The court sentenced him to 2 life terms, plus 28 years. The now 66-year-old is currently incarcerated at the Clallam Bay Correction Center. I don't know, like, they say, oh, his family life, he was abandoned as a child, and it had a distinct effect on how he viewed women and all this stuff. I don't really buy half of that stuff. The depravity, just the posing, like shoving a shotgun inside the woman's vagina, just posing women in weird ways, like just for shock value. That's really the narcissism in him. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate all you guys for checking out my content. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. But thank you. Please be safe, stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.